Today's webinar is part 2 of the mini webinar series about the Ewon remote access and remote data devices. Last week we looked at the remote access part of the functionality of these products, and today we'll be looking at the remote data side. So as I say, last week's was part 1. Part 2 is today, which is around remote access and the multifunction remote access device, the Flexy 205. And then a step-by-step journey how you can move from simple remote access through to remote data. We'll then look at some advanced uses of the Ewon Flexy in terms of data services, and then how the Ewon Flexy can be part of your journey towards digitalization. So just a brief recap about the remote access function of the Ewon devices. We looked at this last time, but I'm going to go through the slide again just to recap that, because this is the core functionality of all of the Ewon devices, whether it's the Cozy 131, which we looked at on the left-hand side last time, or whether it's the Flexy 205, which is on the right-hand side here. So the first thing that happens is the Ewon device is connected to the machine network on site, and when it's powered up and enabled, it will make a VPN connection out to the Talk2M cloud, and that VPN connection is making an outbound connection from the site through the site firewall using port 443, which is a very common TCP port, out to the Talk2M cloud. And that VPN connection is held up as long as the E1 is enabled. On the left-hand side, you have the engineer who has their laptop, and they want to connect to the right-hand side to do some maintenance on the machine, which they're responsible for on the site. So they fire up the eCatcher software, which is a VPN client software specifically designed to connect to Talk2M. Once that VPN is established, they can then see the ends of all these VPN connections within the Talk2M account, which they've signed into, and they can choose to connect their VPN to one of the VPNs from the site. Once that's happened, you then can see a routed path from the laptop on the left-hand side through the eCatcher software, through the Talk2M cloud, through the box to reach the devices behind the E1, which on the right-hand side, those are the devices that the engineer wants to connect to. So once that connection is established, you can then run the PLC programming software as if this laptop is over here on the right-hand side, as if it's on the end of a direct connection to the inside of the panel. And as we looked at last time, that's the core functionality of all the Ewon products, the Cozy, which we looked at last time, and the Flexy, which we're looking at today. So here is the Flexy 205. This particular model in the Flexy range, there are 4 within the Flexy range, but this is by far and away the most popular. It has a base with 4 Ethernet ports, and then you have 2 slots, and these 2 slots are at the front here, and you can put any number of cards in them. You can see an array of cards on the right-hand side that you could slide into these slots. So it's a modular system with core functionality within the base, and then additional functionality provided by the plug-in cards. So as I mentioned before, the core functionality of the Flexy is also remote connectivity. Then on top of that, you then have data monitoring, which is on the site, and then data collection for off-site and IoT applications. And that's what we'll be looking at today. Inside the Flexy, you have a number of functional elements. You have data acquisition, you have historical logging, alarm notification, local dashboards provided by the local web server, local KPIs, which are available through various means, and an OPC-UA connection for remote data connection on the site. Inside the E1, this is what the topology looks like. You have the PLC drivers at the base, which are connecting through to the PLCs. So that will be the means to reach the PLCs from the Flexy 205. Above that, you then have the tag database, and the tag database is fed from communications from the PLC drivers. And the tag database is the center of everything, really. You have the connections at the top to pass data from the tag databases into the web servers, into the IO servers, such as the Modbus and OPC-UA servers. onto the comms services such as email and SMS, onto web services such as MQTT, file transfer, SNMP, HTTPS. You can also link data and event logs to the tag database, and you also have a scheduler. So all of these parts interact with each other. In addition to that, you then have a scripting engine inside the Ewon, which is a universal tool for doing all sorts of things which aren't provided by the standard GUI. So the scripting engine can interact with pretty much all parts of the other functions of the Flexy. So it can communicate to the scheduler, the data logger, and all the comm services, as well as the tag database. So that's what you have functionally inside in terms of the topology of the device itself. So how does someone start off in a journey in terms of moving from the COSI to using some of these Flexy data services? Well, the first thing is to configure some tags in the Ewon. So you would configure the PLC drivers to talk to the particular PLC you have, and then you would configure the tags to use those PLC drivers to communicate and pull values back. So these are the values inside the PLC which you know are of interest, and you would configure those in the tag database. So that's the PLC drivers feeding data into the tag database. Now you can see at the bottom there's a whole raft of names. These are automation vendors, and the drivers for these automation vendors are built into the firmware of the Flexy 205. So it doesn't matter really what PLC you have inside your machines, the Flexy can communicate to it. You can also write, using the scripting engine, some custom protocols as well. So if you have devices that have an oddball protocol that's not catered for within the standard arsenal of drivers within the Flexy, you can write your own. Once that's been done, once you've configured the tags, what you can do is tag 6 of them to be special KPI tags. And the idea of these tags is that the visibility of these tags is short-circuited straight to some of the things that you'd need to use further on. So for instance, if you tag the tags as KPI tags, you can have 6 of them, then they will automatically be shown inside some of the environments we'll be looking at in a few slides, such as the eCatcher mobile app, which a lot of people are using. So that's the first thing, create your tags and configure 6 of them as special KPI tags. You may want to web view those KPI tags across the internet. You'll have the Ewon connected to Talk2M. So you can use the M2Web web portal for Talk2M. And through that web portal, you can then use a browser, any standard browser, to see the tags. And you can see here, these are the 6 special tags I mentioned. And these tags values are visible to the user of Talk2M, even if you're not actually online with that particular Ewon at that time. The data is being fed back in real time straight to the Talk2M portal, and you can see those visible to you inside your browser. So you can see here, this particular machine, you'd be able to look at the data even when you're not actually connected to it, just through the web portal of M2Web. And remember, the M2Web and Talk2M services in their basic forms are free to use, so there's no cost involved here. In addition to that, you can also form a map-based view. So you can see the location of these machines as well on top of a map. And all of this is standard. As I mentioned before, there is also an eCatcher app, and you can use that eCatcher mobile app to see those tags on a smartphone as well. So if you don't have a PC around, you can use your smartphone or your tablet, and this app is available in terms of Android or for the iPhone as well. Moving on from that, you may want to create some sort of actions from the machine. So you've got your PLC drivers feeding data into your tag database. What you can do is you can configure alerts within the communication services here, which feed off the tag databases. So you'll put thresholds against the certain tag values. And when those thresholds are met, you would create some sort of action. And the action would be sending an SMS or sending an email to somebody to alert them that something on this site needs attention. Now, it's important to realize that the features that I'll be highlighting today are all based upon open standards. So we're not talking about a device in the Flexy 205 that is living in a closed universe of solutions. All of the solutions we're looking at here link to the outside world using open standards. So the use of email is an open standard, use of SMS is an open standard, and you'll see some of the other things I'll be talking about are also open standards, which is very important because you can choose the best of breed top-end applications, knowing that with the open standard connections that those will have and the open standard connections that the Flexy will have, you'll be able to link those two things together. You're not having to choose the hardware and the top-end applications from one vendor because they're using some closed protocol which is hidden from you. One other thing to mention here is that the Talk2M service provides a free email forwarding service. So this email may be coming out to one of your clients or one of your engineers. It doesn't need you to create a mail server. It will use the free mail server at Talk2M to send those messages out at no cost. Once you've got the alerts coming out, you may think, well, let's log the data from the machine constantly to the Flexy so we can have a constant memory of what the machine was doing and a constant record of what the machine is doing. It's quite easy to do that. Within the Flexy, there's the tag database can feed onto the data and event logs. So as things change in the machine and the values in the Flexy change, those values will trigger events such as the SMS we saw before, which will end up in the event log, and you can log the data to the data log. And that can be stored in two ways. You can store it inside the memory of the Ewon. You can also store it inside a card, which you can put in the back. So you can put an SD card in the back. Again, all of these are open standard formats. These are standard text files, standard CSV files. So you can easily export them to any top-end application, any IoT application, any database type application. You are, again, linking the Ewon from using open standards into an open standard solution. So it's very flexible and very expandable for the future. As I mentioned, the Ewon has its own internal memory, which has 1 million values it's stored. And you can put an SD card in the back, and using a high capacity SD card, you could store millions of values inside the SD card, inside the memory of the Flexy. And so you would have a permanent record of what the machine was doing for years and years and years if you put a large enough SD card in. In addition to the other services, the Ewon Flexy has a web server. And that web server is completely customizable. You can create a design which suits you, brand it yourself with the look and feel that suits your particular machine. This is a tool which is called Ewon. And again, the screens that the Ewon software will create are using open standards. This is a standard web browser, and this is standard web client. So you'll be able to connect any web browser onto the machine and see it. Now, locally, you can see those screens from a local user's perspective across a local network. And then you'll be able to also see those same screens through the Talk2M from a remote perspective. So once you've built those standard web dashboards, those customized web dashboards inside the Ewon, you can see them locally and you can also see them remotely. This is particularly good for engineers or end users who want to see visibility of their machine. You don't necessarily want to give non-technical people access to the GUI screens, the configuration screens of the Ewon, but you certainly want to allow them to see what the machine is doing so they can do initial fault finding or see the status of the machine from wherever they happen to be in the world using whatever tablet, PC or smartphone they have. Again, this is all using standard technology. Now, one of the things that people like to do with machines, as I say, is to log the data, but you then have to pull the data back and do something with it and turn that log data into information and knowledge. At M.A.C Solutions, we have created a product for that, which is called Fetch. And this Fetch software is a Windows utility which you install on a PC somewhere, it doesn't matter where it is. You can be run in the cloud, or it can be run on a PC and in a physical location at HQ, so to speak. Using that fetch software, you can talk down to the Ewon and you can pull the data logs back from each of the Ewon on a sequence, on a rotation, and you can log those away into a ODBC database, or you can export them as CSV files. So this is effectively a data harvesting utility. Again, it pulls the data back from the Ewon and puts it into a storage, which is an open standard storage. Both CSV and ODBC are open standards, and there are many tools that will be able to consume that and turn that into graphs and trends and knowledge and reports and all sorts of things of that nature. Now, the clever thing about fetch is it retains the knowledge of the data that it already has fetched. So when it goes and fetches new data from the Ewon, it's only pulling back the fresh data, the data that's not had before. And it's completely configurable, so you decide the schedule it uses to go and get the data. This is software that we've written, and we're quite happy to provide you with a 30-day license so you can do an evaluation of this. As I mentioned earlier on, there are a number of ways that you can customize your Ewon using scripting. You can use basic scripting, or you can use Java. And this allows you to do all sorts of really clever, really bespoke things in the Ewon. So this is your get out of jail card for all sorts of things you might like to do. It's also the method by which data is sent from the Flexy using the MQTT driver. I mentioned MQTT just now. MQTT is a streaming data protocol, and it's supported by the Flexy 205, and it's supported by many different applications. So you can take data from the Flexy, you can stream it back to an MQTT broker that would live somewhere on the internet, and then you'll be able to pull data from that MQTT broker and put it onto screens at your HQ, or take the data back and stream it into databases. This is a very flexible way of getting near real-time data straight from all the machines that you install all around the world, and be able to see them in one central point. So this is what you might consider modern telemetry. Again, MQTT is a completely open standard technology, so you can choose the best of breed MQTT broker, the best of breed MQTT dashboarding software or SCADA software, or whatever it may be, and they will all work with the Flexy 205. MQTT is a protocol that's already supported and a standard by all of the major IoT cloud platforms. So you'll be able to take data straight from the Ewon using MQTT into Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, MindSphere, IBM Bluemix, Predix, and lots of other things besides, for archiving and analytics and web visibility. So this is already again supported by the Flexy 205. So all you need is the hardware, a little bit of custom code, and we've got examples of that, and you'll be able to get data streaming into one of these IoT platforms. So the Flexy 205 can act as an IoT outstation, if you think of it that way. On the site itself, the Ewon Flexy can also pass data in real time to SCADA systems. So if you're installing a machine on a site and the machine data is needed to be integrated into the data systems and the SCADAs on that site, the Flexy 205 provides an OPC-UA server. And an OPC-UA server, again, that's a standard. All SCADA systems will be an OPC-UA client. They'll be able to connect to the Flexy 205 and be able to pull data back and be able to pull that into the SCADA systems, alongside lots of other things that will be existing in the control systems on that site. OPC-UA is totally secure, so this is a very secure way of getting data from a production environment, perhaps up into an MES or into an IT environment. So if you're in a position now and you're looking towards digitalization, you're looking to convert your machines from being perhaps a simple machine to being an E machine or an I machine. So if you're in that position now, what can you do for the, how can the Flexy 205 make your journey easier? What can it do for you? So some people who are in this position want to create a menu of services for their customers to be able to choose from. Initially, you may want to offer them the bronze service, and that bronze service may be just remote access, in which case you may just decide to fit a cozy device inside the machine. However, that customer, they then may decide that they want real-time machine alerts. So under that situation, you might decide to fit a Flexy 205 and then configure some of those tags and some of those emails that we looked at earlier. Moving on from that, there may be more demanded customers who may want to see machine performance, maybe see machine reports. You would be able to build the custom web pages inside the Flexy to show them real-time machine performance on their smartphone or their tablet. You would be able to use the fetch software to get data out and pull it back, and then turn the data that's being pulled from those machines into reports, which you can then fire onto those customers. Moving on from that, you may move on to the next level up, which would be taking the data in real time and passing it into IoT platforms. So using the Flexy 205, you could do anything from a very simple remote access solution all the way through to a very powerful IoT outstation and historical machine and analytics solution using exactly the same hardware. You just need to put more time and effort into the configuration of it, and you'll get more out of it. But the actual base cost is exactly the same, and it would cost you nothing to move from bronze to silver to gold to platinum, apart from your time, your engineer's time in configuring it. You would then be able to choose which level to pitch those services out to your customers, and they would buy into a particular level which would cost them a particular amount. So this is a way of creating a service revenue from the use of the Flexy 205 over and above the simple remote access use. So just to recap on the agenda, we've looked at the remote access part initially, then we've looked at the element side inside the Flexy 205, how you use the Flexy 205 to move from a remote access scenario through to a more complicated, powerful data-driven solution, how you might use the Ewon in more powerful ways, such as pulling data back using fetch, pulling data back into IoT environments and such like, and then how the Ewon can provide a means to get digitalization offerings for your customers. So thank you very much for attending this webinar this afternoon. My name is Dave Hammond. I'm the product manager for the Ewon devices at M.A.C Solutions, and we've been the Ewon distributor in the UK since 2006. We were Ewon Distributor of the Year back in 2015. We've been an Ewon Platinum distributor since 2010. You'll find us at mac-solutions.co.uk or mac-solutions.net. So thank you very much for attending, and stay safe and well. Thank you.